because we are just talking about big numbers, huge numbers. The big is difficult to be defined. Just to give you a hint, on the less part, or little part of the world is the change that happened last year, 2012 to 2012, moving from IPv4 to IPv6, so Internet Protocol. Just to give you a number, the IPv4 was able to handle only 4.3 billion American addresses. It's difficult to think that these numbers were not enough for the connection in the world, and that's the reality. And we move to a number that is around 340 billion. I've written it over there because it's also difficult to pronounce it. But the important thing is that these are not just numbers. These are it's not a theoretical number. This is the reality where we are immersed. It's everyday life for everyone. These data are collected through different sensors. It's not only our browsing on the internet. It's not only what we are doing on a chat, but there are lots of sensors all around the world that collect data from us. From the electricity grid, as you see, now the smart electricity grid is able to understand what we are doing in the house. If we are switching on or off an electrical appliance, there are smart video surveillance systems everywhere. And the amount of data recorded through the electronic payments, the mobile payments, are incredibly impressive. And there are special enabling objects to collect the data from each single person. Maybe the king of this object is the smartphone and the tablet. And there are other kind of objects like end-to-end, machine-to-machine objects, which allows the machine to talk one another. Just think about in 2016, we are foreseen to have 10 billion connection, out of which 2 billion will be only machine-to-machine connection, which is a very interesting number. If we go back to the diplomatic work, we realize that the data have got a great power at a three-dimensional level. If you think about the diplomat, we can think about his work, job related, he is a civil servant. We can see him or her as an individual, a single person. And we can see the diplomat as a connected person, both at a personal level or at job related level. The data allows, and the technology which the diplomat is using, is allowing the diplomat to get to work better and faster every day. There are lots of instruments, very interesting, and I've taken here, borrowed him here a slide by Stefano Baldi. Let's think about it, the issues, Picasa, Twitter, the Google Calendar. These are fantastic tools that we can use every day, which allow us to work faster, smarter, better, to be better connected to the world. And the power of it, we are able to handle in our hand, the real hand, a great amount of data and to use for our purposes, both in a personal life and in the job life. And the data enables the diplomat and to also reshape the territories, and not only considering the normal geographical concept of rivers or borders or economic relations, but also through other kind of dimensions, like the relation between the people, the kind of exchanges, the movements of the people, sharing of interest, centers of influence. As you see here in the image that I posted, this is just an example of the territories of Pisa, where the tower is, who are redesigned considering different data. For example, the kind of movement around the territory. If you see how the people are moving in the territory, you'll see that the shape of the borderlines do not reflect anymore the real territory. If you see the connections among the people in the territory, you see a different kind of territory. So the power of data is incredible for the people who are able to use it. But what about the pizza? Who of you doesn't like a pizza? It's very interesting because when you get this pizza, you don't just pay the pizza. There are hidden costs that I would like to see with you, to check with you. Have you ever has it ever happened to meet somebody asking for your purse on the streets or asking for your agenda in order to help you? When you hire a secretary, the first thing you check the job related well, for the people he has been working for, what he has been doing, what are her or his capabilities. You don't hire people just because they are saying, "Can I help you? Please give me your agenda." Or when you go and ask, you want to check for the weather. And let's think about one of the opportunities you have on the smartphone. You can just download an application that checks what's the weather like in Rome in this moment. But have you ever checked what the application is asking you? The application is asking you for a lot of permissions. One of the permissions is to access all your pictures and videos. Or it's asking for the permission to use your microphone. If you have seen that most of the applications regarding maps ask the access to the Microsoft, but it's not a specific permission that is being asked to you. It's just a full permission, so you don't know what the application is doing. When you want to know and want to buy a pizza, and you want to know where's the nearest pizzeria, you ask a person if they can tell you, suggest which is the nearest pizzeria. But if this person is asking you, okay, you want to know where's the nearest pizzeria, I just would like to follow you for a week so that I can tell you where's the nearest pizzeria. What would you say to this person? Maybe he is full, or maybe he has chosen the wrong person, maybe he's a spy, or something like that. Every day we are facing these kind of dilemmas, which are not just funny questions, are real questions. So it's an economic game between the fantastic benefit we have on one side and the hidden costs. Because we are just, if you see the image, they show us a little benefit, but there are hidden costs that we have to consider. And we have to decide if the benefits overcome the cost or the other way around. Here, just to tell you, I want to go back to the smartphone you have in your hand. Just as the major example of the collecting tool for data. Over there you got the information of payments, a complete contact list, the private and work correspondence, photographs accompanied by a host of metadata, film and music listened to, the payments, what you have paid for, who are you sending the item you paid for, everything is over there. And if you check this area is called also it's a moment we are talking about the appification, which means that everything goes through an app. And most of these apps that these little pieces of software that you have on your mobile phone are just for free, but they are hidden costs over there, because why an app who has to help you to remind when is the birthday of your friend has to download all your contacts or all your calendar. Who are you sending this calendar to? Why are you sending this calendar? What are they doing with this data? Most of I would say that most of the companies do not know what to do with this data, but in the meantime, they collect them. Then there are some companies or states that have an idea of what to do with data. But we can, the interesting thing is that when all of this data are not stolen. You are giving them, and you accept to giving them away. And then this is, of course, in the Diplo world, it's an interesting example of what I'm referring to. If you consider during the Cold War, there were many Russian leaders that were carrying with them a chemical toilet. This not to leave any biological waste around, not to reveal any information about their health. There was some years ago a major intelligence action to get some biological waste. So let's go back to the topic from Assad's father. That's interesting because nowadays you don't need to organize any special action to get this information, because you can get them for free from everybody in the world. I'm joking with the words. Give me your eyes. Why I'm talking about your eyes? Because most of the new smartphones are now able to read the movement of the eyes of the gaze. When a team of cognitive psychologists or neuropsychologists had to organize an experiment to work on, for example, executive attention, to understand which word, which stimulus was getting your attention. They had to organize a big room with lots of machinery to analyze the movement of your pupils or your eyes, to see what was the ballistic movement of your eyes. If I do like this, you got the ballistic movement, and if I read the movement of your eyes, I can get where the attention is going. So you don't need to have this big room with people paid for being there with a very difficult study. You got your experimental tool in your hand, and you don't know because the machine is reading that. And it's not reading all of that, it's reading the fashion expression. Some of the newest patents that Microsoft, that Google, that all the big players register in the United States was, for example, the possibility for the camera to read the facial expression. So there are specific fields of advertising that's called, like, for example, emotional advertising. So the camera is able to read if you're sad, if you're angry, and they can match or overlap all this information with the thing that you are doing in that moment. So I can understand what kind of stimulus you are reacting to. If I go further and cross and over and match all this information, I can build a bullet, let's say like this, a tool that allows me to understand what kind of tweet you will retweet, what kind of word will get your attention, which kind of color is getting your attention. So if I want to work on that, I can do it. And you are my perfect guinea pig, everyday guinea pig. And there are also lots of scientists that are crossing now and giving us tools for analyze and use the data in an active way. Let's think about anonymous data. There are statistical, very, very, let's say, old, I would say now, statistic processes to de-anonymize data. So I can take statistics and transform it in, de-anonymize it, just matching different databases, and get out the person who the data is referring to, although I didn't have the name at the beginning. We are crossing pattern-based attribution algorithms, we are crossing sentiment classification algorithms. Most of these scientists were born in military field and economic field. Now these instruments are able to work on everyday base on everybody. So what can I say? What can we say? Most of all, the multiple identity area is over. The most of the people think that if I'm writing on my PC at work, and if I'm writing on my PC at home, I can hide my identity and pretend to be Mr. Francesco Vitali at work, Mr. X at home. I can get a nickname on the other side. These multiple identities in the world of big data do not exist anymore, because most of the big companies, those who have got the data, can overmatch this information. And the other very interesting thing is that the statistical idea of sample is losing his power, because with the tools we have nowadays, the economic resources and the analytical resources we have, we can analyze the entire population. The other thing that is very interesting is that you don't have only to think about the data of the person. It's not only my data, the power is not only in Francesco Vitali data, but the very interesting thing is that also how the Francesco Vitali data relates with the people around. So the data cross in connection with the real life and with other people gets a much more value. And we will be analyzed both as a unique, a single person, and in our social identity. This will match continuously depending on what's the purpose of the person who is using the data. So the question, let's go back to the default. So what is the target is you? You as an individual, the diplomat, or you as a collective audience, as a group? What happens at that time? And the question is, okay, I'm, let's say, scared about this effect. I know there are hidden costs. There are problems, huge problems. And so the question is to be or not to be connected, to blog or not to blog. The problem is that this is a fake option, because if we are, who is not connected just doesn't exist. It's not in the world. So there are many different tools, different strategies that we have to adopt or try to adopt if we have the possibility to do that. Another interesting things related to big data and to the distribution of data is the cloud computing process. I call it whole, the cloud computing whole, because there is most of the items we handle now have this power, this computational power, this capacity to offer us all these services, because the most of the of this power is not in the item itself. It's like talking on the telephone. It's in the backside, in the back office, in the cloud, because all the data are transferred in the cloud. The issue is that when the data is in a little box that you have in your hand, maybe you can think you have some control of that. But once they are transferred on the cloud, you don't know what's going to happen over there. So you got the companies that are transferring client database, financial services, customer relation management information, inventory management. Which company would be the one to tell on the guy met on the street, oh, can you hold all my clients list because I know that you do it for free. No manager with some brain will ever do it in this way. But we are doing it nowadays, every day, because the appeal of the little costs we are paying for the big services we are having is too great. But there are hidden costs that we have to consider. On the personal side, we are just transferring on the cloud the clone of our life. If we see the picture of this little guy, it's it. It's every point is a little data. So you're matching what I'm reading, where I'm reading, why I'm reading it, also why, who I'm talking to, what I'm doing, what I've bought, and everything is shaping our identity, which now is again one, it's not more a multiple identity. So what about the intelligence? the plain intelligence is related to data control. Let's think about the Brazilian case. You've been talking on Diplo about, for example, about the Brazilian case. It's interesting because the president was spied. The NSA was able to monitor the conversation of the president with the friends, with the colleagues, or everybody in the Ministry of Energy was recorded. Somehow, I would say, yes, it's natural. I mean, a good intelligence service, as a first thing to protect the national interest, should control and monitor. I know that there is the Geneva Convention and all these fantastic, let's say, international rules that help us. But the reality is different. So the Secret Service is doing that, is supposed to do that to defend the national interest. But the thing that we are going further, because what about the population? This is not just monitor. And what is worrying me is not just monitoring itself, it's monitoring every single man in Greece, which is possible. And so there is an advanced concept of intelligence which allows who has got the tools to do that, who has got the strategic vision to do that, to understand the wave, to forecasting the climax. Let's think about the Arab Spring case. The Arab Spring was a big shock to everybody. Maybe, I would say, because it was shown, for example, that the Google guys that say that were going with whom was able to monitor to see what was the wave in the country, in Egypt, as in Tunisia. So maybe it was not a surprise at all, because doing that job, you are able to know what are the words that are most requested, what are the issues, what's the sentiment of the people, how it is growing, and maybe you can also let's not change the feeling, but you can work on that. So what's the big data era? What is interesting about this era is that there are, let's say, people, companies, states who have got the capacity to monitor the reaction to specific events in real time, because this is very important. You got the real-time full population capacity to monitor people and to influence them. I give you an example. These were some of the latest projects, latest center financed by the DAPA, by YAPA, and all the other sister programs in the United States. One tool game was the future before at the Twin Towers time. Then you got crowdsourcing for intelligence. You got social media and strategic communication program. What was this program created for in 2011? It was launched to fund revolutionary, I read this because it's important, revolutionary projects in the field of strategic communication on social networks, developing new sciences and technologies with the aim of creating and averting unexpected events in the strategic sphere. What does it mean? That they wanted to create strategic unexpected events or prevent them. The famous black swan, which has got a mathematical concept, but it's a social, historical concept. It's something that you don't forecast. So the program is to manage to orient people and to create a strategic surprise, like the Arab Spring, or many other situations that we are facing nowadays, also at national level. So if we go to a strategic geopolitical dimension, we can say that the ability to use the data is a new power factor. And we can classify the nations regarding to their ability to use it. So there are countries, for example, that are just able to exercise a control through external assistance. I think what was doing Libya or somehow Syria, many of these countries who were just control the population thanks to the technological tools offered by, let's say, some names, France, Italy, or USA, all the Western countries are also from the eastern part of the world. So everybody has got a little piece of this, has gained a little part in this game. Then there are countries equipped with autonomous control tools so that they can develop their tool sets, but they cannot go much farther on that. And there is another problem with the data, that you need to have the data to be able to analyze them. So you can control, but if you want to have this strategical power, first of all, you need the data, and then you need the capacity. So the third level of the state, where I can put, of course, the United States, is those countries who are able to control, to forecast, and to manipulate the individual and social behavior. And I may say we are not talking about the future, we are talking about the present, because the sciences we have, the tools we have, allow us to do that. Crossing the psychological sciences, crossing qualitative ergonomy, crossing statistical sciences, all these things are matching and give us this power. So this is, I wanted to give you a few hints of what is the strategical idea of big data. Of course, on the other side, there must be somebody then that decide what to do with the data. It cannot be only automatic use of data. So let's close with this funny image. Let's go to the questions. I scroll to the question. Yes, about the permission. We cannot avoid to give permission unless we want to use them. The problem is that we should be allowed to give a part of the permission. Nowadays, the tools we have in our hands, how it is built, the software of the major mobile phones, smartphones we have from Apple, from Google, from Microsoft, do not give us enough permission to work on the app tools. So you just don't have the option, I give you this permission and not the other one. So you that are the native software, why do you have to access all my pictures? You cannot give away this permission. Now they are working on new software that are allowing this capacity, but it's not working fine yet. Internal anonymity is not the only non-big brother like the future. Internal anonymity, I would say, almost do not exist anymore, unfortunately. There are some reasons, and the difference between the dictatorial states against anonymity, we can understand why they are working against anonymity. In the Western countries, usually anonymity is a very slippery word, because there are everyday attempts to reduce anonymity for good purposes. Let's see the biggest, for example, pedophilia, or to fight for copyright, or for any other reasons, because of big discussion on the internet. The problem is that this is a very, very narrow line that you have in the anonymity. And every time that you give a hit to anonymity, you're giving a hit also to a basic democratic tool for working for the freedom of the internet. Cloud is even scary because in nature, chamber data security is not two words, not secure, but two words less. Somehow this is true, somehow less. Because if we just thinking about the general point of view, usually people offering cloud services are also offering a better security service than any single individual could afford. Because who is doing this for business, who is running the data of huge enterprises, usually is investing in antiviruses, is investing in techniques against hackers, more sophisticated techniques that we could use at home. The problem is that do we trust the people who is doing this? What kind of control do we have on the control of the data? Very little. We have to work on that. We cannot for productivity and connectivity more visible. Yeah, that's true. It's always we are always back to the same question at the beginning. Benefits and cost, they go together. We have to fight against the cost. And most of the things we have to be conscious that they are hidden, and so we have to consider all of them. I should read the Black Swan. Okay, everybody should read the Black Swan, The Impact of Highly Improbable. It's a literary philosophical book by someone Nassim, and that's exactly the Black Swan I was referring to. It's a book that I really suggest to everybody to understand what is going on. And maybe also the United States may say it's black swans if the world is going in this way, because the unexpected things can happen to everybody, as though they're working on the other side. And I mean, the situation is not easier in Russia, in China, or in all the other countries. What differentiates these countries is the capacity to do that. And most of all, the capacity not only to control, but to influence, to forecast what is happening, and to influence the event itself. Maybe where countries are less able to provide the data companies with the framework and legal infrastructure. This is a very interesting point. For these questions about the countries who are not offering enough data, I want to show another slide that I've left at the end. CB, some forecasts about IP traffic. I didn't want to give many numbers about the data, but these are interesting. For example, in 2016, the global IP, so Internet Protocol that goes through the Internet Protocol, traffic will be 4 times what was in 2011. The interesting thing is that, for example, the Asia Pacific region will account more IP traffic than North America. What does it mean? And nowadays, most of the traffic relies on the United States, Canada, Europe. In 3 years, it would be very different. The very interesting thing, for example, will be related to the mobile traffic. So what will be handled through the smartphone, through all the wearing items, the wearing objects that we are carrying, we are transmitting over the IP. So the volume of mobile data traffic will be 18 times. And the greatest growth in mobile traffic will be in Middle East and Africa, 36 times. What does it mean? That the countries that at the moment are not offering the data, they will be offering the data in 3 years, not in 30 years. In 3 years, they will be reaching somehow United States and Europe. So I think about the strategical power of this information if we are able to do that. I think about any country in Africa. If you don't have a very specialized person now, they cannot tell you what is going on. Tomorrow you just push the button and you know exactly what is going on in every single individual that's got a mobile phone in that country, if you have the capacity and the sophistication to use the tool. Depending how you define wide, I think, yes. We have different modalities just to connect people. Sorry, Stefano Baldi is suggesting me to say also which that was your questions, and the question before was by Gabo De Boron. sorry for my pronunciation. Let's see if there are. Okay, whatever you do will be followed, tracked, and analyzed by some entity. What about encrypted messages then? What has come out with the NSA? With Snowden, encryption doesn't seem to be that encrypted at the moment. Of course, the NSA is hiring more mathematical experts than all over the world currently together. But this is not only the issue. The issue is always a problem also for the NSA, but for all the entities, for the companies that are working with the data, is a problem of cost and benefits. How much do they pay for analyzing the data? So what's the value of this data? So I can pinpoint a single individual, if I'm interested in a single individual. I can pinpoint the group of interest, the group of relations. There are different levels of this. So I would say that encryption itself is not a protection, probably. Encryption, of course, to decrypt has got a cost. If you are a target, the cost can be very little, like you can pay off. Angelica, one of my heard, it's like show person of interest. Everything is recorded and that way. Yes, in fact, it was a movie from many years ago. So consider the movie usually is telling a story that already happened. I don't know what it is. Okay. Davide Grandani of the position that idea of new social relations on the web and an unlimited space of freedom is perhaps a bit, and could become a big problem for democracy. Yes, the thing that has to be considered is where the democracy stands, where are the values. And this is very important for the democratic countries. And I think hopefully in the United States, our example of democracy, there are different opinions, different drives regarding what to do with data. So we have to face this and to fight for what we consider to be elemental, fundamental rights in every country we are. Another thing that we have to consider that a national action alone has no effect. Think about the pressure that are now in Europe, on Europe, regarding the new regulation on data protection. We still don't know if in 2, 3, 4 months this regulation will be approved or not, because there are strong interests against, because if you got a strong data protection laws that allows you to ask to the cloud company, what are you doing with the data, or to refer to the other countries that, I'm not saying at the same level, but at least to try to be at the same level, the things can change. When the first Snowden regulation came out, the France Prime Minister suggested the other minister not to use smartphones. So it's a first try not to be spied, but it's not effective because it's all the people working with the minister and using the smartphone. Maybe it's useless, the minister is not using it because I can reconstruct what is happening as if I'm spying on the minister. So we have to work very much for tools to protect the democracy. Angelica, we adjust the rules of democracy in such a way that we can still protect ourselves against legal and corporate intrusion. Yes, I would say it's very complicated at the moment, but the hope is still there. Big data era, personal data are not protected. Free era is not able to protect the private data as well as private life. always see cross inquiries related to paradigm. People to still be confident in the cloud, computing the paradigm are safe in order to build the big data. It's more than a question, it's the reality. We have to fight for the data, for our data. At least we need to fight to be paid for our data, both by private companies or for the state. I mean, if you want my data, you have to give something back to me. And the fight has to be, an exchange has to be a real exchange, not a fake option like those that is offered on your smartphone now. Do you accept or do you accept is the option. I think everybody has to be able on Patreon to be ready to the situation in which everyone, social media and internet, has to do public speaking on the streets. That's true, but this is also a great opportunity because the changing movement, also for a better life, for a better situation in the countries, happens because of this. Social networks themselves are not creating the event; they are just giving the possibility that the event happens fast. It's like adding a sort of chemical power that makes the formula works faster. It's like an additive, a chemical additive to the reaction. Then there are, of course, if you cross that with cognitive science that I told about, or ergonomy that I told, we can work also on kind of manipulation. And most of it is the way to make the situation happen faster. Maybe the other thing would happen the same, but through the social network, all what would have happened in 5 years happened in 3 months. And this can be also an opportunity for changing for better sometimes. You cannot hide nothing and protect it. That's absolutely true. And let's say about, I want to give you some hints about the data. Let's think about, for example, the chip you got in the card, the RFID, RFID that you got in the card. If I've got a Canon, a special Canon to highlight, to switch on your RFID that you got in your smart card, in your identity card, in the card of the supermarket, I can see who is in the name of the protesters in the middle of the crowd. So I don't need to photograph them. I just need a special Canon to switch on the RFID items that they wear, maybe in the jacket, maybe in the identity card, to understand who is over there. This is just to give you another hint that data come from everything we are carrying with us, that we are wearing, that is we are crossing through the grids, so electricity power, video cameras, everything is collecting data. So what can we do on that? We have to reflect. Data protection is another chapter in the concept aspect of global governance. I would say is a fundamental chapter for 2 reasons. On one side, because data protection is a basic right, if we want to work on that, because now everything goes through that. And data protection is a strategic tool to protect or to increment the business, because everything now is data protection, is data. So if you are not protecting the data, or if you're not ruling the movement of data, you're deciding not to rule the economic situation in the world. It's like if the states hold their hands and say, okay, do whatever you want. But we have experienced many times that the just Wild West is not enough for things to get better. Davide, I'm a bit skeptical on the idea that it will It was Twitter that happened the same year. Political events in the 20th century happened actually just as fast. Think about the 68 movements and no internet back then. Davide, you're right. Somehow, of course, if there was no presence to give fire to himself because it was not able to work in Tunisia or in Morocco, if the situation in the country was not that, Twitter would have done nothing to change the situation. What is Twitter doing is making the things happening faster. That is definitely has been demonstrating, and can also influence. And that is true. You can say through the movements of money, because the most of investments of Twitter were from financial companies. Financial companies were not just buying shares or want to buy shares of Twitter. They are analyzing Twitter to understand which company is going up and down in the market, because they can forecast through Twitter. So if you see the movement of the money, you can immediately understand if the money, if the tool is working. And I may say the tool is working. Thank you to everybody. If you don't have any other question, I just thank you for your attention, and see you on the next webinar. If you want to, on the webinar page, there are 2 articles I've written, one on media, the other on big data, and in a month's time, I will publish another article on mobile payments, also by a statistical point of view. Thank you very much.